Gleah Powers is the author of the award-winning books $1 Million Red, a memoir, and Edna and Luna, a novella. She's a Pushcart nominee and a finalist in the 2017 and 2021 Next Generation Indie Book Awards. And she was shortlisted in the nonfiction category for $1 Million Red in the Rubery International Book Awards of 2021. And she's also a grantee of a prize from the Barbara Deming Memorial Fund. Her writing has appeared in print and online in multiple spaces and outlets. She completed her formal art training at CalArts and has worked professionally as a painter, actor, and dancer in New York, Los Angeles, and Mexico City. And when we get to hear her read tonight, you'll see one of her beautiful paintings behind her. She's an alum of both Antioch LA's BA and MFA programs, and I'm definitely excited to have her here tonight. And this is what another MFA alum from Antioch, Jillian Lauren, had to say about $1 Million Red, Gleah's book, which she'll be reading from tonight. Gleah Powers scales the fortress, braves the unknown, and shares the adventure. She sets a heroic example of how to save your own life, one story at a time. So please give a warm welcome to Gleah Powers.
Thank you so much, Alistair. I'm going to read an excerpt from a chapter in $1 Million Red. And it's a story from the pre-1973 era about an abortion. Abortos. One night in late summer of 1965, 2 months after we graduated from high school, Arlene and I drove 3 hours through the desert in 95-degree heat from Phoenix, where we lived, to Nogales so she could get an abortion. We'd been told to go to the bus depot on the American side and wait in the cafeteria for the doctor to approach us. We sat at a long metal table, drank coffee, and smoked cigarettes. An evaporative cooler rattled above our heads, spitting out hot, muggy air. I tried to conjure up a good outcome, but couldn't help armoring my body for the possible butchering of Arlene that I would somehow have to handle. Raised Catholic, she feared God would punish us. And though we were almost in Mexico, I worried that if God didn't get us, the US government would. I'd arranged everything, pretending I wanted the information for myself when I asked Donna, a divorced woman in my art class, what to do. Donna's drawings were technically perfect, and she was 38, so I trusted her. She wrote down a phone number, said to make the call from a payphone, not to worry, it would be safe, she'd been through it herself. Arlene sighed and leaned across the table. I could never have handled this alone. It's lucky I knew who to ask. I didn't tell Leonard or anyone else but you. Is he the father? Yeah, I have to end it with him. He's a drug dealer. The people he hangs out with are scary. I'm so grateful you're here. Me too. I reached for her hand. Arlene became my only friend the year I was sent to live with my grandmother after my mother's third marriage ended in a costly divorce. I didn't know anything about the old woman, but would soon learn that she went to bed at 4 p.m. after drinking straight shots of bourbon for 3 hours. When I arrived, she told me if I obeyed her wishes, things might work out. She had 2 rules: no wasting electricity, like you're doing now, she'd said, standing there with the refrigerator door open, and no lying. Hanging out with Arlene helped make the situation bearable, though sometimes I could tell she was annoyed when she gave up the possibility of a date with a boyfriend to be with me. Suddenly, a slender Mexican man, about 40, was standing next to Arlene. He wore a polyester short-sleeve shirt with a tie and gray pants. His hair was combed down with something shiny. He smelled like lemons. You waiting for me? He sat down next to Arlene. She leaned away from him. You have something for me? The woman on the phone had said $200 in small bills sealed in a white envelope. Arlene handed it to him under the table. His nails looked clean. He wore a nice watch and a wedding ring. I told myself this was a good sign. I go out now and you follow, he said. I have a brown Chevy. What car do you have? A 61 white Plymouth, I said. It was the used car my grandmother had bought me with a column shifter and no radio. Across the border is a hotel, 2 stories, he said. There is no name. Look for a flashing sign that says bar. You get a room. I watch from the parking lot. After you're in, I come to the door, okay? I nodded in agreement and he left. Let's go, I said. Arlene didn't move. What do you think? I think he's okay. We should go. Outside, the night was hotter than before, the air crackling with dryness. There were no streetlights and the moon was too thin to light our way. I think that's him, said Arlene. She pointed to a pair of uneven headlights off to the right. What if he drives away with the money? I hadn't thought of that. He won't, I said. I tugged at Arlene's arm and we walked faster toward my car. We followed him across the border through the blackened desert. The highway disappeared behind us. Ahead, we barely saw the flickering bar sign. It looked like a dying signal from a spaceship. We got a room on the second floor facing the gravel parking lot. It looked clean enough. I parted the curtains and peeked out. He got out of his car with a doctor's bag. Donna had said he was a real doctor. My chest felt tight. The doctor tapped on the door and I let him in. He put down his bag and shook both our hands. I am Dr. Medellin. Which one? He asked. I nodded toward Arlene. How far along? Más o menos 7 o 8 semanas, Arlene said. We'd figured out how to say this from what we learned in high school Spanish class. He opened his bag and pulled out a needle and vial of something. You leave, he said to me. Come back in 2 hours. Well, I didn't think I'd have to leave. Neither did I, said Arlene. What is that? I asked the doctor. To make her sleep. She will not feel a thing. I cannot start if you are here. I'll be back, Arlene, don't worry. I didn't want to abandon her, but I didn't know what else to do. I got in my car, rolled the windows down partway and locked the doors. I wanted to cry, but I had to stay alert in so much darkness in the middle of nowhere. Crickets chirped in the distance. I'd read somewhere they were a sign of good luck. Soon everything would be back to normal. I'd get a job, maybe something to do with art. Arlene and I would get an apartment together. Headlights shined in the rearview mirror and I heard tires grind through the dry air. A car pulled up behind me. A man emerged and walked toward me, weaving back and forth. He had long hair and a mustache. Where is she? He said into my half-open window. His speech was slurred. My heart pounded through my veins. My hand shook as I felt for the handle, rolled up the window as fast as I could. I know she's here. I have no idea what you're talking about, I yelled through the glass. This had to be Leonard and he must have followed us. I didn't know what he might do. Where is she? He started toward the hotel, his arms swinging around his tight, muscled body. I got out of the car and ran in his direction. I've got a gun, he said. I planted myself in front of him, put my hands on my hips. What are you going to do? Shoot her? I don't know, he said in a quiet voice. He looked down, his arms went limp. The gun swung from his finger like a toy. Let's get in the car, I said. I led him away from the hotel, put the gun away. He slipped it under the seat. I know what she's doing down here, he said. I don't think so. I didn't believe it was mine at first, he said, but you know, I've been thinking about this one night we made love, where it felt like something was there that was never there before. Know what I mean? That doesn't mean I want to keep it. I leaned my arms and then my head on the steering wheel. You okay? Shut up, I said, my voice like a growl. What's with you? Get out. Hey, I don't know what your problem is. I don't even know you. Get out. Okay, tell Arlene I'll be in the bar. She'd better be all right. Leonard retrieved his gun and got out. Bastard, I said. My head felt like thousands of pins pricking the inside of my skull. The doctor's car was still in the parking lot, but the 2 hours were up. I went to room 235 and knocked. The doctor answered, stood there wiping his hands on a towel. The room smelled of sickening sweet lemon cologne. Just finished, he said. Is she all right? I moved closer to Arlene, passed out on the bed, covered with a blanket. She was still breathing. Everything is fine, a little bleeding for a few days, nothing to worry. Do you want to see it? His eyes got bigger and he smiled. See it? It's in the toilet. God, no, I said. He went to the bathroom and flushed. He came back, still smiling, rubbing his hands together. He sat down, crossed his legs, and leaned back. She will be out until the morning. I ordered some drinks from the bar. What do you like? You'd better go. We have a party, no? He could do whatever he wanted and no one would know. Who could I call for help in Mexico? Leonard was it. I picked up the phone and the bar answered. The doctor said, I like scotch. I'm calling for her boyfriend. He's been waiting downstairs. He has a gun. If I were you, I'd get out of here as fast as I could. The doctor grabbed his bag, ran out the door. I watched from the window as he slipped on the gravel and headed toward his car. His wheels spun as he took off through the parking lot. For the rest of the night, I sat draped over a chair, clutching a pillow and chain smoking, waiting for Arlene to wake up. Leonard dozed in the other chair, holding the gun in his lap. I wanted to pull the trigger right where the barrel was aimed. I hated that he'd become my rescuer. Before daylight, Arlene began to stir. I woke Leonard and told him to get coffee. I sat on the edge of the chair and watched her wake up. Her face was soft and puffy, mascara globbed under her eyes. How do you feel? Fine, I think. She pulled back the blanket and sat up, but I'm pretty sure that guy had sex with me right before I passed out. I could have dreamt it. I didn't care. Leonard's here. Where? You told him everything. Where is he? You said I was the only one who knew. I couldn't help but tell him. Well, why did you lie? I didn't think you'd help me. Look, he followed me here. That proves he loves me. Arlene got up and moved slowly to the bathroom. Over running water, she said, your problem is you've always been jealous of my boyfriends. How can you say that? I shouted into the bathroom. I don't have the energy to discuss this now. I'll drive home with Leonard. I'll call you later. Thanks for everything. Leonard came back to the room and they left. I stood by the window, barely breathing. I watched him help her navigate the stairs. They got in his car, then sped off down the highway. The sun climbed up the sky as I made the long drive home. I'd worried about Arlene being butchered, but now I felt permanently cracked open. Thank you.
Gleah, that was amazing. My gosh, thank you. How incredible. And everyone, I put in the chat a link to the press that published Gleah's $1 Million Red, which I can't recommend enough, that she read from tonight. And in it, amongst other things, you'll get to read when she hung out in Death Valley with Michelangelo Antonioni while he was filming Zabriskie Point. And like, who else do you know who was on that film shoot? So thank you, Gleah.